I say hi, and thanks for taking us. Poland seems to be growing in influence in the European Union. In all this, in the middle of the crisis in the Eurozone, in the European Union itself. Do you think that this is sustainable? And do you think, and what do you think it is based on?
Poland is growing, and it is clearly punching above its weight. But for once, we've got a set of historical circumstances that allows this to happen. One is Poland is doing well.
So they're seizing the moment.
Yeah, they're making the best of a good situation. And this is not a common circumstance in Polish history, right? We're actually not used to having historical luck, which is what's happening right now. What's playing in our favor is one that Poland is reasonably well governed. I mean, there is mounting criticism of the current government for a number of incompetent activities as undertaken. Having said that, compared to what is the Central European norm, this is smooth sailing. This is the first government to be re-elected. Yeah. And that's no small thing. Second, the economy is doing well. Growth is slowing down. For next year, we're projecting 2.8, and probably it will be 2.2% growth. Having said that, many European countries would love to have 2.2% growth, right?
But in the same time, Poland still needs a lot to catch up.
Of course it does. But the European funds that have already come to Poland have by and large been wisely used, which is a universal surprise. Apart from major failure in updating the road network, most other structural funds have been used very well, and the quality of life in Poland has vastly improved. But also, Poland has become much more attractive to foreign investors, as the gap between standards in Poland and standards in Western Europe is diminishing. So we have political momentum, we have economic momentum, we have a hyperactive foreign minister, and for once we are on excellent terms with Germany. One of the reasons why the economy is doing well is that it has in fact become integrated into the larger German economy, and not only as a supplier of semi-finished goods, but as an equal partner in many respects.
What can go wrong? Because the picture that you're drawing right now seems pretty good.
Well, almost everything can go wrong, and most of it will. One is political stability is not guaranteed.
Which means that if the government changes, it could reverse this progress.
Yes, because the only existing alternative, which is the Law and Justice Party of Chairman Kaczynski, considers the successes I've mentioned to be failures. They believe that Poland has given up on its independence, is governed, this is a quote, by a Russo-German condominium, that the economic success is a sham, that it's just a facade that masks true disaster. And they make no bones about saying that they would reverse all major policies if they come to power. The good news is they're still not electable. They remain stuck in the corner, but it's a big corner. It's 1/4 of the electorate. And the government is losing support fast because it has made a number of inept choices in internal administration, not even political choices, matters of simple administration. And frankly, it is not healthy for a democracy to have the same ruling party, say, for 3 consecutive terms. So although my sympathies, such as they are, would rather be with Prime Minister Tusk and his civic platform, I certainly would be happy to see a change of government in the next elections in 3 years' time.
Yeah, because that's healthy.
Of course. Point is, I don't really see anything on the menu. Law and Justice is not a trustworthy government party, and the left opposition is ridiculous. It's split between a residual post-communist social democratic party and a new movement called the Palikot movement. Now, Palikot is not an obscure Polish political term. It's the name of the leader. And that essentially says it all, right? So although Poles are getting fed up with civic platform, there still doesn't seem to be a viable alternative on the cards. But elections tend to be tricky things. And we might find ourselves in 3 years with a new majority that would create a very different government. Second, in economic terms, we're benefiting from the best of both worlds. On the one hand, as I said, we are integrated with the German economy, therefore we are piggybacking, as it were, on the boom. But second, having kept the zloty and not being over-eager to join the euro, we maintain still a degree of sovereignty on currency matters, which enables us to buffer the crisis.
And for now, it plays well
For
Poland.
now, it plays well. Having said that, if the conjuncture turns, if, for example, the German economy drastically slows down, as it can happen, of course, the first things to be jettisoned will be external economies cooperating with Germany, meaning Poland. And second, we will have, not being in the Eurozone, we will have no influence over fundamental economic decisions that will affect the German economy and therefore the Polish economy.
But
so everything that went right can go wrong.
But it seems that Poland is fighting, and for now it seems to be getting what it wants at European level to secure precisely that right of a word in the decision-making process in the reform of the Eurozone. But it seems that it's not known where precisely is the boundary where someone would say, as Nicolas Sarkozy said once, you're not in the Eurozone, you should not tell us what to do. So when do you think is that moment when Poland has to decide in the Eurozone or outside?
As soon as we meet the criteria. I mean, Poland's stated intention is to join the Eurozone. But we haven't been in a terrible hurry to meet the criteria. Because I said we're enjoying the situation of being...
This cannot last forever.
It cannot, no. And if push comes to shove, Poland clearly will opt, at least under this government, for joining the Eurozone. In the meantime, we try to convince our partners that future Eurozone members, the not yet ins, should have a voice at the negotiating table and should influence future reforms of the Eurozone. The French, having changed presidents, have not changed their opinion about who should be deciding about the Eurozone. And it is only the sympathetic hearing we get from Germany that, say, at the last summit, has enabled Poland to somewhat push this idea through. But the summit was not decisive. Essentially, we will still have to wait.
No, it was not.
Right.
December probably will be.
Yes. And Poland already is accepting that it will not get full voting rights, that it will get limited voting rights. And essentially, it's only fair. We're not in. We cannot take full responsibility. But as Prime Minister Tusk had said at the previous summit meeting, it's very simple. You're either at the table or you're on the menu.
Yeah,
We
sure.
don't want to be on the menu. We are also very concerned that the EU will in fact split into a Europe of several speeds, because talking about Europe of two speeds is nonsense. There will be the speed of the Eurozone and the different speeds of those who are not in it.
And there are many.
And there are many. And for countries that have not joined the Eurozone, when the split really occurs, and we are moving in that direction, nobody wants a big formal split, but the entire dynamic of change...
It's going in that direction.
Yeah, the entire dynamic of change is going in that direction. Then countries like Poland or Bulgaria, for that matter, that had not joined the Euro, will discover that they have to rejoin the EU all over again.
And the big problem, as it seems, is that Poland might remain alone in these efforts because Bulgaria and Romania are so much focused on other problems, and the other countries as well. So Poland might end up pretty alone and isolated.
It might. And because for all our grandstanding, our economy is only 1/4 of the German economy, this means we will not be able to play the role of the big independent player. And the problem is that this is like riding a bicycle. Yes, you can get off even without an accident, but then in order to get on again and get back to the speed you had been driving at, you really have to put in effort.
Is the Visegrad Group a good way out of this situation? It seems that
No.
Poland is trying to bring new momentum into that organization.
Yes, Poland is desperately trying, and it has always been trying within EU politics to build a coalition of the weaker. And there are two problems with that. One is that, to the perennial Polish surprise, our neighbors aren't terribly thrilled to see Poland assume the role of local leader. And second, our neighbors tend to quite sharply disagree over what's good. I mean, try to imagine a common policy for Poland, which wants in the Eurozone, but is not ready to do so yet. Slovakia, which is in the Eurozone. Czech Republic, that is not only not in the Eurozone, and not only doesn't show any inclination to join, but
It's
is
a
run...
Central European Britain.
Yes, run by a president that is viciously Eurosceptic. And Hungary, that essentially hopes to become a Chinese market in Europe, and has a prime minister that says that all this Euro thing is just bloody nonsense. Apart from the mistrust of the smaller members of the group towards the largest member, what exactly would be a common economic policy of those four? So what Poland is trying to do is to preserve what can be preserved, build on small initiatives. But even there, we are running into problems, many of them of our own making. For instance, compared to Poland, Slovakia in the Balkans is a diplomatic giant.
Yes.
But Slovakia has been investing time, effort, and money in the Western Balkans. Poland has not. So in what is the biggest regional political issue, the integration of the Western Balkans, and this certainly is the biggest issue for the Visegrad Group in terms of the political future, Poland simply doesn't pull any way.
Yes, but Poland is now being president,
Yes.
holding the presidency of the Visegrad Group, is now organizing a ministerial with the Western Balkans. So this might be a signal for a shift. Or
Well,
is it too late?
No, look, it's never too late in politics. And Poland hasn't done anything disastrous. It simply has, as of now, still not done what needs to be done, which means invest time, effort, and money in the Western Balkans. And at the meetings you're referring to, the main theme is, so where's Poland? And hopefully Poland will get its act together, although playing, well, not devil's advocate, but Poland's advocate, we have more than our plate full with Eastern policy.
Yeah.
For Poland, Balkans are an important area, but our existential priority is Belarus and Ukraine, and the Eastern Partnership there is going to hell in a basket. And Poland needs to dedicate its efforts first to salvage the salvageable in the East before it can look south.
So it seems that Poland is investing a lot of efforts in in a lot of directions.
And it is a medium-sized country.
What could be then a right thing to do for Poland to keep what it already has?
Well, to keep what it already has, Poland has to do more and more. This is not an investment.
More and more in one direction, or more and more in all the directions?
In all the directions, otherwise we'll lose whatever we've gained. So in a situation when growth is slowing down, Poland's role as the bright economic story
Might
in the
also.
EU. Yeah. So we have actually to show that we can reverse the decline of growth. Not obvious. Yes, it is a success that we will have some kind of rights on the Eurozone, but this is just a stopgap. Until and unless we really make it inside the Euro, we will be second best. The question is that there is no national consensus about joining the Eurozone the way there was and still is about joining the EU.
And it seems that very soon Poland will have to decide quickly.
Yeah. We were thinking in terms of, well, let's play it both ways, see how it goes. No. The price of joining the Eurozone will sharply increase with the passage of time. And if Poland doesn't join quickly, it will find itself on the European periphery with, as I said earlier, having to rejoin the EU all over again. Interestingly, from a European point of view, this kind of development is not necessarily a bad thing, because then it is one way of approaching the unsolvable issue of Turkish membership, eventually future Ukrainian membership.
In what sense?
If
How?
joining the EU is only the first step, because the real EU, quote unquote, becomes limited to the Eurozone, and the Eurozone might not necessarily remain as 17, a Grexit is still a possibility, for example, then having Turkey join the EU, for instance, is less of a hurdle than it was until the Eurozone became the real hardcore.
It could be a good solution for the Western Balkans as well.
Yes.
So you mean a European Union in several stages?
Exactly.
First stage, the
Yeah.
broader European Union, then an inner circle, and then the core.
Yes.
What could be that inner circle? Possibly Poland and
I
which else?
don't think Europe can work without at least one of the major Eastern Central European countries within the hardcore.
So Poland should have to
Yes.
choose whether it should sacrifice and join the Eurozone.
No, Poland has to choose what kind of sacrifice it wants to make, okay? It can either sacrifice its ambitions and indeed its expectation to be a major European player and relegate itself to the periphery, or it can sacrifice its belief that we really made it and the rest is just aftermath, and prepare for another civilizational jump the way that we prepared when joining the EU. The problem is that the social enthusiasm is not there.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Pleasure.